Hello, and welcome to the Scott Mize Show, a podcast focused on health, diet, bodybuilding, and philosophy. I interview experts, doctors, coaches, and N=1 case studies to answer your questions about improving health, achieving your best physique, and making sustainable progress. We'll cover topics from carnivore and ketogenic diets to bodybuilding to life philosophy and everything in between. Enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by LMNT Electrolytes. This month, we're switching it up with an exclusive offer that's only for VIP LMNT partners, including Carnivore Cast listeners. You can now receive this free sample pack along with any regular purchase when you use my custom link, which is provided in the show notes or my Instagram link in bio. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, all one word. And as I said, I'll include the link in the show notes. LMNT Electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious, and get yours today to help support the show. Thank you. This is a quick disclaimer before we start the show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical advice, and please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise regime, or medications. Thank you, and on to the show.
Joe the Machine Palacios is an IFBB Pro bodybuilder and super heavyweight and overall champion at the 2023 USA Championships. He's a regular on Fit Nation podcasts with Baidi Farl, Zade Raslan, Stu Sutherland, and others like Nick Walker. Joe has been competing and coaching in bodybuilding for several years and has a wealth of knowledge and experience helping competitors and lifestyle clients. Welcome to the show, Joe.
How you doing, man? It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. So I'd love to start for folks who aren't familiar with kind of your background and story. I know you got started in bodybuilding a little bit later, but when did you start, at least the enhanced side, when did you start bodybuilding and why?
So, so to start from the very beginning, I played football in high school and middle school, but I started lifting weights in high school as a freshman. We just trained however the coaches taught us, but they actually used some bodybuilding principles my junior and senior year. So I actually was put through like body part splits as early as my junior and senior year.
Oh, wow.
I took, once I graduated, I took like a complete year off of everything, like working out and all kinds of stuff. And then found myself back in the gym when I was 20 years old, or 19 going on 20. And then I kind of picked up from there what I remembered in high school, and then got back in the gym like 3 days a week. I gradually increased my knowledge with the internet and YouTube and all kinds of stuff, applying for myself, coached myself for a very long time. And I was natural that whole way up until, so I did my very first show in 2020. I was 26 years old when I did that show. I was 100% natural. We're talking about 0 gear, zero diuretics, no clenbuterol, nothing like that.
Yeah.
That was all diet and just training.
Is this from when you were competing on the left or before then?
That was the year before. So before I decided to compete, so I got really lean by myself for the very first time in that left picture.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let me try to do one more like real proper off season as a natural athlete before I jump into anything. And I also I promised myself if I were to get into bodybuilding, I would do my first show natural. So I did in 2020. And then I took second in novice bodybuilding. And in that same show, I took second in the open. It was a show in San Diego. It was called Iron Games. And after that, I had the conversation with my whole family that this is something I wanted to pursue. I said, me doing that naturally and doing as well as I did, I see myself actually making something of this. So I let everybody in my family know what I had to do, and they're all on board with it. They were just excited to see me excel in something. And so in November of 2020, like I think it was a few days after that show, after I stepped on stage, I started my very first cycle. So right before I turned 27. So and that happened in November. I turned 27 in February. So I just tell everybody right before I turned 27, I started my first cycle. I'm 30 now.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really cool that you decided to wait and had the discipline to wait until you do your first show, because so many people are hopping on all kinds of stuff just to like look a little bit better, not even compete.
Yeah. Well,
And
you know what? I'm a huge believer in foundational things. So not only do you like, not only the foundation of like strength and what you're capable of naturally, but just mentally too. You're going to go through a lot of stuff as a young adult going into adulthood that you're not going to take. Most people won't take bodybuilding that serious. And I told myself, I'm going to be all in if I'm going to do this. And I know the sacrifices that come with it, just expanding my knowledge on the sport and stuff and watching the greats do it. And so I needed to know that this is something that I wanted for my life if I was going to be going to that extreme level of it. So that's
yeah,
why it took so long.
absolutely. That's really smart. And talk about what the last few preps have been like for you, like since we can even start with that first natural prep, and then the last two preps you've done. What have those been like for you? Talk about the good, the bad, the placings, what you learned, and we can eventually get to USA's.
So starting from the very first one, it was really hard because I didn't have a show date. It was in 2020, so
Mm,
all these shows were getting canceled left and right.
right.
And I started prep on a whim. Like I just kind of started off on my own and was like, you know what? When I start looking the part, I'll start looking into shows. And from that experience, I tell everybody never do that. Always give yourself an end goal, because when you actually feel what it feels like to be lean, you want to know when that it's going to come to an end,
Yeah.
because it is extremely rough, especially if you've never been there before mentally. Um, because yeah, the physical part obviously is what tests you mentally. And so you just always pick a date. And so that first prep ended up being a 19-week prep. And anybody that does this naturally, honestly, the longer the prep, the better. You're more likely to keep as much muscle mass as possible because it's more of a gradual thing compared to if you're enhanced, you have synthetic things outside of the training and diet that will help you hold on to your muscle tissue due to strength and all that stuff. So naturally, you don't have that. You just have whatever you can give with whatever energy you have. So you're most likely going to lose some muscle. Just you can control like or mitigate, I guess, how much you actually lose by taking your time. So yeah, 19 weeks. Because I got lean the first time, I actually got really lean the first time before ever competing that year prior in that picture of 2019. So I had an idea what it was going to feel like, but I pushed a little farther than obviously when I got lean that first time. So yeah, my last 4 weeks, I asked my buddy for help. He was an IFBB pro, a newer pro at the time. So he helped me peak for that show because I knew how to get like as lean as possible and stuff, but I didn't want to mess up that last part, and so that's when I asked for a little bit of help. So that first 15 weeks was all me. Last four, he kind of put his 2 cents in and here and there and helped me with posing and stuff, and then we landed that first show. The second show I ever did, um, so I gave myself pretty much almost a full 2 years between shows. It was from 2020 to 2022 that I had that break, but I wanted some time and cycles under my belt before I took on another show. And the show that I wanted to take on, I would ask the gym owners and stuff and just people in the bodybuilding community, for California at least, what the most prestigious amateur show would be, to like kind of like give me an idea of where I would stand on a national level show. Like I didn't want to jump into a show where no one shows up and you win just because you went up against people that aren't that great. I wanted to go against competitors, like people that will kind of give me an idea of where I'm at. And so they told me between the California State Championship and the Excalibur, but California was usually a little more prestigious. So I was like, okay, so when I'm ready, I'll step on that stage. So I did just that. That was the hardest prep I've ever been through, actually, because one thing that people always try to take away from people that use gear is that, oh, it's easy weight out and blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna let them all know right now, like I've done it both, and being on gear is way harder. You can push yourself way farther, and you're closer to death at that point. You can get killed. And
Yeah.
so try to perform at max capacity and be able to push that much farther in body fat. So people that, try to take away from that, I'm like, dude, unless you walk the walk, you have no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, I was working a full-time job that was very labor intensive. And it was the one thing, or the only time in my life I ever felt like something was going to break me as a man. Because
Wow.
the job was labor intensive. I had big projects to work on, and then so it would be a 10-hour shift, and then I would have to go train, and then I would have to do the cardio after the training because the job started so early in the morning. So I'd do post workout cardio. It got up to 75 minutes. My carbs were only at like 70 grams.
Oh my
And
God.
on my training days, it was only 27 grams on my rest days. Um, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done as far as prep. So after that prep, USA's was difficult, but it was very doable due to the fact that I was now as a personal trainer and doing online stuff. And so I didn't have that same job anymore. But I
Yeah.
promised myself I would never do that again because it was, oh my God. But now I'm set up for like success. You do something so difficult and then you do it again, but with ease almost. And so that was cool. But I remember being ready for that. Like I did everything in the off season that because people wanted me to do, even my coach. So Justin Compton was telling me after I won the California that he highly recommended I did USA's that same year in 2022, which was 9 weeks later. I
Yeah.
was still working at my job, and I told him like that mentally I prepared for the show date, and that was it. Like I was gonna like I lost like I I had such a hard time at work. I was like, I need a break from bodybuilding as far as like staying lean and stuff. I was
Yeah.
like, I want to focus on growing for the next one. I had a plan and a blueprint in my head. And like for me to try to switch that last minute, it wasn't gonna happen. Like I know myself.
Yeah.
Plus, that was my first like show where I dove that deep into bodybuilding, like as far as like body fat and how serious I took it. And so it affected my relationship. So I had to fix that too, like going into it.
Yeah.
She's still with me to this day. So she's a real one. But man, that first one was rough. And but you live and you learn, right? Experience is the best teacher. But
Yeah.
so I remember Justin telling me he completely understood. I told him what my plan was. And I think everybody, because he told me I was going to get my pro card. He said, you'll honestly, I see you winning as a heavyweight because I was only 218 and for that show. He saw me being a heavyweight. He wanted me to do 212
Wow.
right away and stuff. So he had a little plan for me in his head. But I was like, honestly, and I told him everything I just told you. And I said, I want to win USA's. I was like, it's one thing to give a pro card, but in my head, I believe I can win the whole show. I said, I just need a little more time and I need a little more, I need a little breaks from it. But I was like, I want to do everything I can to make it happen. So I'm going to take the offseason serious, this and that. And so I told him the plan. 14 months later, I'm on the USA stage, do that prep, and I won the whole show. So everything we set out to do, I told him I wanted to do, I did it. I didn't mess around the off season. Like, I lived life a bit, but it was 100% around bodybuilding. Like that was my main focus. And I trained really hard. I did everything that I could to make sure that I didn't waste that opportunity that he saw me having in 2022.
Yeah.
So, because I had a vision in my head, I wanted to stay true to myself and follow through, and I did. He was super happy about it. He was excited when he saw that I actually did everything I was going to say I was going to do. Because come to find out, he was talking to my training partner about how he didn't think I was going to do it because some people like hit a peak and then never get better. And so, I mean, he's not used to seeing somebody stick to what they're saying, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
that was cool to him that I did that and all that stuff. And yeah, so I would say the hardest prep I ever went through was that second one. Third one, I was just driven, and now we're here on this one. And 4 weeks out now, um, we had a game plan for this one, and I actually had him make the call. I was like, you know what, you have an eye for this, and I trust in your eye and what you're seeing for me. So I said, when you think I'm ready, I'll compete as a pro. I'm like,
Mm.
but until you see that I have what it takes to actually win a pro show, then I don't want to do it. I'm not here to waste my time. I have no problem, building what I need to build and taking the time to do that. So here we are.
Yeah, and talk a little bit more about the USA's. Like, what was it like, winning and being up on that stage, first winning your class and then going to the overall. What did that feel like, and what was going through your head?
Well, first off, it was funny because the game plan originally was for me to compete as a heavyweight still.
Yeah.
And so I got up to 274 pounds at my heaviest that off season preparing for that show. And as I was cutting down, Justin was realizing how much muscle I actually put on. And because I come off very soft on camera to people, I guess. And Justin lives in Florida, right? But when you see me in person, it's a completely different look. This is what I've been told, not to just say it about myself. So as we're cutting down, he's realizing, damn, like he's pretty peeled. And I remember I remember looking in the mirror and I was 235 pounds. And I told my training partner, like, man, like, not even trying to be a bitch or anything, but I have no fucking idea where the rest of this fat's going to come from.
Yeah, it's 10 more pounds, right?
The heavyweight, yeah. And I was like, fuck, dude, I don't know where it's going to come from. Like, but I mean, maybe Justin sees something I don't. So come to find, Justin gets me down to 223, the lowest weight. And he actually messages me randomly one day. I guess he was looking at my pictures and he said, hey, Joe, like how stuck are you on the thought of being a heavyweight and competing as a heavyweight? And I was like, look, Justin, I told him what I told you, or right now what I was talking to my partner about. And I was like, I didn't know where the fat was going to come from when I was 235. I said, maybe I have like 3 more pounds on me. And he said, because I'm looking at your pictures, and he said, you're not getting any more conditioned. You're just getting flatter and flatter. So he said, I feel like we've taken off 10 pounds that we didn't need to. And so I said, well, the way I look at it, I plan on winning the whole show. So whether you bring me in as a heavyweight or a super heavyweight, I'm going to go against either guy. So it doesn't matter. And so I was like, I'm confident in my ability to win either way, but I want my best look. So wherever that falls and wherever you see me achieving that, I'm fine with it. So he decided to start carving me up right away because if he wouldn't have, I would have came in a lot stringier than I did. And so he actually let that call be made up to me to an extent. And I'm glad we made it because I didn't have to hold back. And that look wasn't me at 100%, which excites me for this next one because there's no weight cap we have to worry about. I did lose some of my legs. They got eaten up because of how far we had to push me.
Yeah.
And so this time around, like I actually stayed off the Stairmaster because of how much cardio I have to do. I do a lot of cardio still, but it's treadmill, so I'm not burning my legs out. Just a couple things different just to keep as much size on me as possible. He plays this game where he'll bring me down, then refeed me, bring me down, refeed me. Yeah. We're not having to constantly drive me in a depleted state. So, but yeah, for the USA's, that's kind of what happened, and it worked out for me. But again, I'm excited because that was not my best look. I lost 10 pounds extra that I shouldn't have, and trying to recover that was what we were trying to do at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's badass. Just saying, I'll go in whatever class. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's funny because you truly believe in some of the shit you say. Like, like they say, like, oh, well, maybe he just talks to himself like that to try to make him believe it. But man, when you put the work in behind it, like when you know that you did every little thing you had to make it happen, it's like you truly believe you're going to do that shit. So I was fearless for this one. Like there was no doubt in my mind. I remember 5 weeks out, I had a couple of buddies doing USA. They did like a little live thing, and they asked me, how do you think you're going to do? And I said that I'm going to win the whole show. Like, where's that confidence coming from? I'm like, well, dude, I did everything I had to make it happen. So I believe I'm going to. And yeah, it was pretty badass when everybody that thought I was stupid for not doing it in 2022, it was real cool to be like, oh, remember guys when you told me I was stupid for not doing it?
Yeah.
So it was cool.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it was. I just did my first ever show, and I got into this a bit later. I'm 31, but yeah, it was very similar for me. Doing like it'd be like my body's super responsive, so it'd be like 3 days. He'd lower my food a little bit, and then like I'd drop 2 pounds very quickly, and then he'd be like, "Okay, increase it," and it would just be like back and forth like that for the last few weeks.
Yeah. It's nice though, man. Those little like, because you only, I'm experiencing that somewhat this time around because the approach is so different and I'm way more muscle than I've ever been.
Yeah,
So I mean, people with high metabolisms, like eventually you're going to get a higher metabolism, maybe not the fastest, but the more muscle you have, you're going to metabolize things better. And so the constant game of like depleting you and then filling you up and depleting you and filling you up, it it's way easier than constantly digging into that
yeah,
depletion. Like, trust me, I've
yeah.
done this. This is me doing both, and I'd much rather be this way.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. No, like prep for me didn't even feel like suffering, other than when I got very sick. But it was like, the lowest my food got was like 3,300 calories. So I really couldn't
Oh, so
complain.
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And like I'm 3 weeks post show now and I'm already well over 5,000 calories. And it's becoming a problem.
Yeah, that's funny.
So,
Yeah, no, you're working with Justin as well, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah. So one thing Justin is like notorious across the spectrum for is he will feed you, and as long as you're staying on the tighter end of things, he will continue to feed you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a very huge believer in simple, stupid, and I think he is as well.
Mm,
I mean, food is what drives everything. Obviously, whether you're trying to grow or cut down, and
absolutely.
this is why I like Justin a lot too, because even the food choices, there's nothing crazy like putting certain supplement right before this, and this, and all that crap. Like, no, I could never do that myself. So
Yeah.
his plans, the way they're laid out, you tell me to eat more, I eat more. Like, and it's of these simple foods. Like, I'm all about it. And
Yeah.
I've had a big appetite myself. So him constantly pushing food in that direction in the off season, it just works well for me. And then obviously he knows just how far to push you in depletion before feeding you up in the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So the whole rebound process he does with his clients and stuff, like it's just I'm very confident in him. So I never question a thing.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's a good
crazy.
thing.
I think I was saying this to Baidi. It's crazy how good of a coach he is for coming straight from being a super high level competitor and then becoming a coach. Like, I can't really think of other examples of that, of people who are like competing at the highest level as a pro and then like just became a coach afterwards and were like really good at it, you know?
And I don't know if a lot of people know, but Justin, for the most part, coached himself. And
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of that, like, I guess, confidence in it comes from because trial
Yeah.
and error, doing it to yourself. And then
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy like, okay, if you've had something done to yourself, you have zero remorse for doing it to others. It's like, well, if
Yeah.
I've done it, I know you can do it. So he'll push you. And some people I feel are afraid to push someone too far. And I just think he's fearless just because he's walked
Yeah.
the walk. And I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Absolutely. But at the same time, he's not like this worked for me, it has to work for you, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's like he's very good at tailoring things to the person and making the right calls. Um
Yes.
so what is your and I've been really enjoying your videos on YouTube with your training partner Paul.
Thank
The
you.
Adventures of Joe and Paul. I think that's such a cool
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Um, what has your training approach been like throughout your bodybuilding time, and how has it changed over the years?
Okay. So when I very first started, I was a huge believer in pyramid sets, right? So
Mm,
not necessarily straight sets, but pyramid sets where as you're upping the weight, you're lowering the reps. But say you start off, say 12 reps, then you 10, 8, 6. So everything's pretty much 4 sets. And then you would slowly add in weight with each set. So whether it's 5 or 10 pounds, then you get to a whatever set weight. And then the following week, you do that again, but you start 5 pounds heavier your first set. So you're slowly increasing your strength. And a lot of people that see me live, they see how strong I am, right? So like that foundation of those pyramid sets is kind of why I got to the strength level that I'm at. Because I've always somewhat applied that base. I may not train like that all the time, but that was a huge like base that I had. So I truly believe that's why I'm so strong and why my muscle looks as dense as it does because of the hard and heavy training, but it was built as well through hypertrophy. So the higher rep ranges. Um, as time's gone on, I think you get more in tune with your body and you learn how to make things stressful on the muscle outside of weight itself. And because I mean, progressive overload is done in so many different ways. But what I mentioned earlier was the like most basic form of it. But as you get bigger and stuff, you need to find other ways because you're not always going to get stronger. So um, as time's evolved, my training, I guess you could say I go more by feel. Sometimes I'm strong as hell, and then other times weight feels heavier than it should. Or say I'm a little dinged up here and there, like say my knees bothering me. I will find another way or approach to training. And it all comes down to pretty much intensity. So again, training by feel, but everything I do is always difficult. So, but within that, there's some sort of gauge. So say, for example, I'll go in and I'll do my heaviest Smith squat was 6 plates for 12 reps. If I'm not always that strong, what I'll do is say something's bothering me that day. So I'll do something I've never done before, whether it's through reps, time, or whatever. So say instead of doing 6 plates on a Smith squat, I'll do 5 plates for 12 reps, but now I'm going to do 2 sets of it. So it may not be as heavy, but I'm going to overload now by adding an extra set. And so, or say one time I remember I did 6 plates for the 12 at my top strength. And then the following week, I was like, I'm not as strong today, but I'm going to push another way. So I did 5 plates for 20 reps. And that was another way of me pushing farther than I ever have, just with something outside of load itself. So I took another load and I applied more reps to it. So again, training by feel and finding a way to make something very intense and doing something I've never done before. So PRing in some other way. So that's typically how I train now. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really smart. And I think you have to, when you get to the strength levels you have, like you're very, very strong, Joe. When you get up to those levels, you have to be adaptive and smart and think about things that way. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of injuries.
Yeah, and that's what it is. So like, I know Paul will come in with me and say, so Joe, what are we doing today as far as like how are we attacking it? And I literally say, I don't know. I know what movements I'm going to do, but until my body feels the motion, like I'm not going to know. I'm not going to know if I'm that strong. I'm not going to know if something's bothering me. Sometimes I feel like something's going to bother me. And then for some reason, when I train, it's good to go. So I literally have to feel out the workout. And there's times where I make a move right in the middle of it. So it's like, say I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to be able to do this. And I start doing it. I'm like, okay, you know what? That was heavier than expected. From here, I'm going to do a back off set. Or I'm going to do, instead of going up to this weight like I thought I was going to, I'm going to do this set or this weight for this many sets for this many reps. Or I'm going to do a pause at the bottom on this one, Paul. Or this, so I will make a decision within the workout on how I'm going to dictate that workout. So
Makes sense.
100% by feel. Like I said, it's food is everything. So whatever the factor is, I know how to train intensely, but the food is what's going to get me to where I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And have you ever tried doing like Justin's crazy high volume, like, 20 failure sets for a body part? Like I was watching your leg video with Paul, and it seemed like you did like 1 or 2 really hard sets on the hack squat, 1 or 2 on the leg extension, and like 2 on the leg press. Have you ever tried doing like the crazy volumes that Justin got up to, or you find you don't need that?
So the most I've ever done was 3 failure sets per exercise.
Okay.
So technically I have. And I couldn't recover from it. and I don't have like a labor job anymore. Like it was just too much.
Yeah.
And it works for a little bit for me until it doesn't. So I found myself having a harder time trying to like unbeat myself up from that and then doing it again. Like I ended up starting to like get little nagging pains here and there. And then I was like, you know what? Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So for my body in particular, I've really liked one failure set per exercise, but there will be a structure to it. So it'll be like I always say the very first exercise we do, it's as many warm-ups as I need, and then I'll do a working set and then a failure set. So after that first initial exercise, all the other ones are all 3 sets worth, but the very first one is the feeler set because it's a different machine, different angle. I'm gonna feel where I'm at with that machine, and then once I feel that, the second set I'm gonna work, and the third set I'll have nothing left to give.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that's the total of. So typically, I do like 5 exercises per body part. That's 10 working sets, but 5 of those 10 are complete failure sets.
Got
So
it.
I'll take my body to that failure point, but not the point of no return. Because I need to be
Yeah.
able to do the next exercise and I want to be able to hit that angle of that exercise to my best as well. So if you
Yeah.
burn out on the first exercise, you're useless the second and you're taken away from a different angle of the muscle that you're going to underdevelop because of it. That's how I look at it.
Makes sense.
And that's what works for me. So
Yeah. And then for legs, like those 5 sets would be split across hamstrings and quads.
yes. So
Yeah.
like for example, like because I actually for the California, I worked out 6 days a week. For the USA's and for this show, I've only worked out 5. And everybody's like, damn, Joe, what did you do for your hammies to get them to like hang that low and all that shit? And I said, I got rid of
Yeah.
my hammy day. So, and my back got really wide. I got rid of my RDLs and stuff because my hammy day was right after my back day back then. When you were
Interesting.
RDL, you're going to use a lot of lats depending on how
Yeah.
heavy you're going to go. So I was like, you know what? I'm all beat up and shit. And like I'm just gonna try it. I'm gonna see if I do full range of motion, like work out the leg like it's working as a whole. Um, I was like, maybe it'll benefit me, and it did. So the extra rest day helped a lot. Um, for hammies, I always tell people if you want to develop the actual belly itself, it's like the bicep of the leg, right? So you're gonna curl for that thickness of the belly, that hang. So I was like, okay, well, all I need is a lying leg curl and a seated leg curl, and then your hammies are automatically going to be worked indirectly in the compounds, which were the leg presses or in the squat. So I'm like, really, do you need a hammy day? No, unless I want to, unless my tie-ins are suffering and I really need an RDL, I don't believe I do. So that's how that happened.
Yeah.
5
That's
days a
cool.
week.
That makes a lot of sense. Very logical. And what do you think about like what have been some of the hardest moments in bodybuilding for you, like emotionally, spiritually, things that have really challenged you, or times when you felt like you were at your absolute breaking point?
So for me, it was performing at my absolute best when I felt the worst. Like trying to mentally tell myself I can, like, okay, if you've ever gone on a prep, right, and you're in the trenches of it where it literally like sucks to bend over to pick something up, like you feel like the weight of the world is sitting on your shoulders. You feel that feeling, and then you're driving to the gym, you get out of your car, and you feel like your legs are like covered in cement. And you're like, how the hell am I going to do this 500-pound squat? How
Yeah.
am I going to lift 3 to 4 plates off my chest? And then when you're sitting there and you're warming up and everything feels heavy, but then you tell yourself like you have to sit there and tell yourself that you're just being a bitch and like it's all in your head. And then you start moving the weight and it's weird. It's like it's literally a psychological mental thing that you have to get through, but it's not easy. Like when you say, I don't know how I'm gonna like, or how am I gonna do this? And you have to convince yourself, like, I don't know how, but it's going to get done.
Yeah.
Like that's probably to me the hardest part. Um, Obviously that, and then the starvation. Like, dude, when you're hungry, man, and you're not allowed to just go have something, and you're the one in complete control of that. Like, all you have to do is go eat something. You'll get full. Like
Yeah.
so. But to be able to starve and control that, and try to go to bed hungry, that's probably the second hardest thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, that oh, and I obviously, so I've been with the same girl the last three preps now, and getting through that, just the relationship thing, because
Mm.
starting off they don't understand anything,
Yeah.
but as time goes on, like if they stick around, which is very rare for most bodybuilders, they actually grow with you, and they take on it way better as you take on it way better, because I've gotten better every prep, the way I handle things, the outlook on life. I truly believe anybody that puts themselves through a prep will learn how to really appreciate a lot of things. Something as simple as how nice it is to just get up in the morning and feel good, and something like enjoying a meal, like actually enjoying the food that you're eating. Spending time with people, like when they like, instead of like saying, "Oh, I don't feel like doing this," like when you feel good, you want to do everything. Like you just
Yeah.
want to do everything. So you learn how to like love life more after doing stuff like that. So, but yeah, prep. I have always told Paul, like every time I do a prep, I always like learn something about myself. It's always a good thing though. It's not necessarily bad. It's always a good thing. So
Yeah.
prep is a different animal.
Yeah, absolutely. When do you think you'll be done with bodybuilding, Joe?
Whenever I've been asked this question, I always tell people I'll be done when I stop being competitive.
Mm.
So once I start to see a decline, and it's not like right away, say, you have one bad showing, that doesn't mean anything. But when it's like
Yeah, I
two
was
or
going to say
three,
you've set the bar high with your last two.
yeah. So no, but I mean, as long as I stay competitive, if there's no, so say, because you obviously don't want to stay stagnant either. So I told myself, I'll give myself a good 2 years as a pro to make it to the Olympia stage. And if you don't do that, I'm going to hang it up. But say I go to the Olympia stage, say this year, now I'm setting on a different project, or trajectory. So as long as I can continue making it to the Olympia, and then um, trying to just place higher and higher, slowly but surely there, that's kind of how I'm guiding it. But I just want to get there first, and I want to give myself 2 years to do that. So
Yeah.
so 2 years after this year, not just this
Okay.
year.
Yeah. What are your goals for this year? You're doing the Cal. What else, and what are you hoping to achieve?
So the way I approach things is I don't like to sell myself short. So for right now, I plan on going to the Olympia after the Cal. So meaning I plan on winning. Um, Outside of that, whatever happens, I'll figure that out when I get there. But that's the plan in my head.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you can. Absolutely. I'm excited to see
I
it.
truly believe it too, and that's something I told Justin about. Like, even when he tells me, I need to see it too myself.
Yeah.
So when this last off season that I had, I saw it as a possibility, like a good chance, and I also like the Cal. I want to go against some good guys, and but it's not like it's the New York Pro, right? It's not an Arnold. It's within a caliber that I see myself making it happen. Next year, I've talked about it. I plan on doing the New York Pro no matter what. But this year, my sole focus was making it to the Olympia, and I wanted to do the pro debut in my hometown. So here we are.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I hope to see you, if not at the New York Pro next year, sometime before then, and really excited to see you at the Cal from afar, and hopefully at the Olympia too. Thank you so much for coming on today, Joe. It's been awesome to get to know you a bit better. And where can folks find you if they want to follow along or reach out to you for coaching?
So I do all my business through Instagram, like DM me through Instagram. And then we take it from there where you can get my information, my contact information and stuff so that I don't actually coach you through DMs.
Yeah.
But yeah, Instagram is the best place to find me. I have my YouTube channel, The Adventures of Joe and Paul. That's actually been something we've been focusing on. Like we would talk about it for a while. We just needed the camera guy and stuff, and to get in a certain place where me and Paul could kind of just like be consistent as training partners. And yeah, man, that's been fun traveling to different gyms, meeting all kinds of different people. My main gym is Fit Nation Gym. That's what I call home. But we travel all over the place as far as the gyms go within the county and stuff. We plan on traveling outward, depending on how everything goes this season, like going to Texas and doing stuff over there and Vegas and popping up more places. So again, it's all going to be based on this season and what comes out of it for me. And Paul's always going to tag along no matter what. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
That's great. Well, I'll have a link to your Instagram in the show notes. And thanks so much for coming on today, Paul. Or Joe, sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's all good. All right, brother.
I totally had a brain fart there. Thanks so much for coming on, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Scott. All right, man.
Thank you for listening to the show. You can find The Scott Mize Show on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please leave a comment, like, review, or share the podcast with your friends or followers. It helps more people find the show.